Good morning.
Good morning.
So, how's everyone doing this morning? Doing okay? Feeling some hope, some joy? Still got that going on? I hope so. I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope your practice is going well. And practice is what I would like to talk about this morning. I was talking to my wife Kathy. We were out to eat, and I said, I need a topic for my next Dharma talk. I don't know what to do. I've been doing all these Sunday Dharma talks lately. It's just kind of the luck of the draw, and I'm running out of topics. And what should I do? And she asked, well, what is it that you would like to say? What would you like to say to people? You know, just coming from deep inside. And I thought about it for about 5 seconds, and I thought, I want to say, practice, practice, practice. Take care of things, take care of things, take care of things. And so that's my talk. And I'll elaborate on it a little bit, but that's basically it. And I don't know why really, but I feel like I have kind of a sense of kind of urgency about this. I don't know what. Maybe that's coming from within me. But I think it just comes from my position of being a teacher. It feels like I have a sense of responsibility to really encourage practice. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. And so I have this teacher role that I'm in that comes from a very long tradition going back many generations. I think it's close to 90 generations now, going back 2,500 years. There's kind of the official lineage, and then there's the real lineage, which has many branches and comings together and comings apart and everything. But it comes down to us, and it's not just about tradition or continuity or institutions or a duty to one's ancestors. It's really about compassion. It's all about the compassion that motivated the Buddha to try to find an end to suffering. And sometimes it feels like, I mean, we have a lot of fun here and we can be pretty light, but sometimes it feels like this is really kind of serious business, you know? Because usually I think when people show up at Zen Center, it's not about sort of idle curiosity. Usually I think when people show up at Zen Center, they're ready for something. They're ready to take on something new. They're ready to be challenged, maybe even ready to be challenged down to their very bones. And maybe you remember the first time you came here. And who knows? I'm guessing you didn't just sort of drop in out of idle curiosity. It can take a lot of courage, actually, to open that front door, to cross that threshold. And that's why I so often hear people say, I've been going past the center for years now, and I've been seeing it, and I've been thinking someday I will walk into it, and that day came, and so I just came to Zen Center today. And yeah, maybe that's what happened. Maybe one day you just decided to do it on a whim. But maybe it took you 10 years to get to the place where you would really be ready to welcome something into your life that perhaps was going to really unsettle you and really challenge you. Maybe it took that long to be in a place where you're willing to give up a little control and join in with this thing and see what would happen there. And maybe you had an inkling that there was this great, profound, life-changing process that could happen. This giving up of the self. This giving up of the self, which is really, I think, at the heart of all religions. So it can be serious business. And the seriousness can be compounded a little bit because sometimes the motivation that brings us here is tied up with personal difficulties. And we might sense, consciously or unconsciously, that this giving up of the self may be the ultimate way to give up our difficulties. And that may prove to be true, and in the end, we may actually be grateful on some level for the difficulties that brought us here, because they were the entry gate into something so deep and expansive that it contained and transcended our difficulties. So I think most people coming here want the real stuff. They don't want Buddhism that reinforces their existing beliefs and biases. They don't want Buddhism light. They don't want reassurance that the path they're on is the best one. They want to consider a new path. So it's the center's job, I think, to provide the real deal, to provide the opportunity to go deep, the opportunity to engage in practice in a way that honors the seriousness of the task. And there are a lot of different approaches among Zen teachers as to how they provide that opportunity. If you've been to other Zen centers, especially in person, you may be aware of this. And one approach, one possible approach, is to provide an atmosphere that supports a very stern and very disciplined practice. And that can be really great. That can work out well for some people in some places. There's a statue over at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. I don't know if it's still on display. I haven't been there for a while. But it's a statue, a Japanese statue, I think it's in wood, of a Zen master sitting in the posture I'm sitting in. And it's pretty much life-size. And you've seen it? You know what I'm talking about? And he is the fiercest looking Zen teacher you could imagine. You know, just totally thin and totally, not tense, but very, very present with his entire body. And the corners of his mouth are turned down, and he looks stern, and he's holding some kind of a stick. And that kind of exemplifies one approach to Zen practice, you know, one ideal of disciplined practice. And some places, they really lean into that, and the focus can be on kind of a rigid adherence to forms and a lot of correcting, and a hope that this is just really going to be the path that's going to help people to that liberating experience of giving up the self. But that's not me. That's not the path I've chosen. I choose a gentler approach, and I think MZMC is imbued with it. I didn't start it. I think for years, Tim did a great deal to soften that traditional approach, make it more accessible for lay people, for regular folks, for folks of all types, for whom that other model may not work. And that model is a beautiful one, and it has its place, and there are times I've sort of looked to it, and it's helped me, especially when I was younger. It had a lot of fire and energy. But here we want to share the practice with people of all types, all ages, all body types, all kinds of states of mind, because we can bring very, very different states of mind to our practice. And it's not always easy, because we have all of these traditional forms, and to try to move them a little bit in the direction of more inclusivity while still respecting the forms themselves. So we're always going back and forth on that. But here we try to follow a path that can lead to that liberating experience in a gentler way. And we've kept a lot of the Japanese forms, and I love to practice them in the morning. Priests wear their robes usually, and we have a formal service, which is the Heart Sutra. On Saturdays, we have a very formal service that lasts about 20 minutes and is really beautiful. If you come to Rohatsu, our 7-day retreat in December, you'll see it's very, very traditional with robes and chanting and oryoki meals. And I'm really glad we're preserving all of that stuff. But we've also made these forms gentler, and I can think of 3 ways in which we've done that. And one is that we make some effort to explain and introduce the forms. I know how Tim has talked about Suzuki and how you would chant the Heart Sutra, and you did that for I don't know how long, 2 years before he told you a word about what it meant, and you all wanted to know. And he's like, just chant it, just chant it. And I kind of like that approach. Just chant it, open yourself up and see what happens. But people want to know what it's about, so we try to explain it. And we have our introductory series where you can go to a 4-part series and find out sort of what's going on here before you jump in. And if you show up for the first time at a morning sit and the ritual starts happening, someone is likely to come over and stand next to you and explain, here's the chant book, you can follow along, you can join in the bows if you would like. If you're not ready to join in the bows, you can just stand and observe. So we try to make it a little softer. We have a forms and etiquette class on Friday evening before traditional retreats, which explains a lot of this stuff. And occasionally we give a class in ritual, what is at the heart of bowing and chanting. And this is a good opportunity for me to say something about that specifically, because there's one about to start, Wednesday, August 28th, and that will be led by Ben and by Deb, who is across the way doing the intro right now. And it's a class on Zen ritual and liturgy. And it's an investigation of how and why we do ritual. So that's one thing we do. Also, we don't always follow the formal ways here. We give people a choice. Sundays are quite informal. Half of the retreats are formal, half are less formal. You can choose. If you want a long retreat that is less formal, you can go to Hokyoji in September. If you want the formal retreat, you can go to Rohatsu in December. And sometimes people take a while to warm up to the forms, and they may kind of avoid them for a while, but I tend to encourage people to give them a try. You know, if you really aren't sure about the ritual, maybe take a class and see how you like it. And I've heard many people say that after they've given it a chance, they've warmed up to ritual and even found that it becomes a really essential part of their practice. And I think you could probably say the resistance in my mind has been overcome by the acceptance in my body, because it's an embodied practice. And that's a lot of what ritual is about. But I think the biggest way in which we've made the forms gentler is just an attitude that we have. Because I can understand how people feel when they come in for the very first time. And maybe it's the first time they've come here and they're at a service, and I can see, and I've felt it before myself, you want to be oh so careful, because you can see that things are sort of carefully choreographed, and you don't know when you might offend someone, when doing a little thing might upset someone. But the thing is here, we don't get upset. We know that everyone's new at one time. I was new at one time. I walked in, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't follow the forms completely. And we don't usually go around correcting people. We don't say, no, do it the other way. We figure, well, if they keep coming back, they're going to see how to do it. It'll come to them. They'll pay attention. Everything will be fine. So, and eventually we tell you things. Like, here's one. When people show up in the morning, the doshi comes in. So the person is seated facing the wall. The doshi comes in. They might hear the doshi doing bows at the altar. They might hear the doshi walking behind them. What they won't know, if they're new, is that the doshi is holding their hands like this in greeting, and that they can raise their hands in greeting as well. And I don't know why, but we don't usually tell people that right away. We tell them down the road somewhere. So, but here's my point today. Here's what I'd really like to say, and that is that I've talked before about this gentler approach, and I've emphasized it. But just for the sake of balance, I need to say this, that the gentler approach does not mean a lax approach, right? the fact that we are gentle and forgiving about how we learn to practice, or that we try to be gentle and forgiving, doesn't mean that we don't take the practice seriously. It doesn't mean that we encourage people to sort of take the easy way or be dilettantes or not challenge themselves. On the contrary, the gentle path is intended to be a skillful way to help you introduce yourself to a very serious and very challenging practice. And if you cross that threshold wanting something deep, you will find it here. You don't have to go deep. You can stay on the surface, that's fine. And you can stay on the surface for a long time until maybe you're ready to go deeper. But if you want to go deep, you will have the opportunity to do that here. And there's the opportunity to go so deep that from this perspective right now, you can't even know what that might look like. But it requires a serious approach and a serious commitment. So I hope I can make this clear with words. There's no contradiction in saying the practice should be very forgiving and loving and gentle, and at the same time it should be a means for you personally to find a way to bring a great discipline and devotion to it. It should be the most devoted practice enabled in the most gentle way. And that can actually be kind of a difficult thing to try to do or to try to hold in your mind. How can I do this really disciplined thing in a gentle way? And it's a good question and maybe a bit of a koan, because trying to get the forms right can tap into feelings of guilt, or maybe this kind of desperate perfectionism that we can have, or shame related to ways we've been taught things in the past. And when these things come up, there's a great opportunity to explore them and maybe even find a way to let go of them and engage in some healing. So maybe there's a way I can do my best without hearing that voice that says, no, you can't do your best. Maybe I can see that that voice is entirely empty. Yeah. And maybe one other way to try to express this in words, I've mentioned this before to some folks. My teacher, Barbara Verkuylen, a great teacher from Madison who died just recently and was a great inspiration to me, said, the practice is hard enough. And what she meant was, the practice is hard enough. We don't have to add to it by bringing a lot of corrections or a tense atmosphere or something like that. We can be as loving and gentle as possible and still trust people to do the hard practice. Because believe me, if they're doing the sitting, they're doing the hard practice. If they're managing to find a half hour every day to do their practice in the midst of a very busy life with a job and raising kids and all of that, that is the hard practice. If you come to MZMC and you spend a day or a week staring at the wall, wrestling with your own personal karma, wrestling with life and death, all of that, that's hard practice. And you're kind of alone as you do it. The practice is hard enough, but you're surrounded by a sangha, and hopefully you have a good relationship with a teacher, and that practice is surrounded with gentleness. So when Kathy asked me, what do you want to say? I think it was that I wanted to get at. Yes, a gentle practice is important, and I talk about that a lot, but I also want to encourage folks to make that great effort when it really matters, because it really matters. So you can do this. You can do the difficult practice. And that was my attempt to make this clear with words. And I hope that I and other teachers here also make this clear in a wordless way, and that experienced practitioners here make that clear in a wordless way through how we are, how we carry ourselves. I hope that we can carry ourselves in a way that allows people to see focus without rigidity, and continuous effort without desperation. And you know, I fail at this sometimes, but that's okay. I'll keep trying. I'll keep up the effort. So at this point, I would like to talk a bit about practice, 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 and take care of things, take care of things, take care of things. And because what I'm talking about here is effort. 2 weeks ago, I did a talk on prajna, the paramita of wisdom, also known as the perfection of wisdom. And this week, I'm talking about, I realize this some distance into writing the talk, I'm talking about virya paramita, the perfection of effort, also known as diligence, energy, or continuous practice. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this in terms of watering the good seeds, not the bad ones, and I find that really helpful. We have a choice each moment as to which seeds to water, whether to be mindful or not. And he says that we need to really get to know the seeds we have within us. He says, we should learn to recognize every one of these seeds in us in order to practice diligence. That's not easy to do. We need to put in a great effort to do this. So, through regular meditation, you do it when you can do it. Doing it at the same time each day, same time, same place, having a regular schedule is really great if you can do that. Not everyone is able to do that, given our busy lives. But that's okay. You do it when you can do it, and that is a skillful way to approach your meditation practice, and it can allow you to have a very strong practice in the midst of living your life. It's harder than having that regular time every day, but the discipline there is just to keep at it, to keep it always on the middle burner, not the back burner, and make it a priority, and really show up to meditate when you're meditating. And remember that if you can sit at Zen Center here in the Zendo, you're supporting everyone here. And that when you're online, you're supporting people here very much and supporting the teacher, especially if you have your camera on, and I can see you there. Sorry, that felt like a little admonishment. And when interacting with teachers, you can remember the wordless ways in which gentleness and great effort can be conveyed simultaneously. The teachers may be saying, here I am, here is my practice. Please make an effort to see it. It's kind of subtle. I invite you to see it and learn from it and join in. You don't have to, but I invite you. And finally, we come to taking care of things. When I first said that to Kathy, I actually said, take care of your shoes 3 times. Because shoes is just a great example of taking care of things. You know, Bouchot has talked about that, and how when you come in to the center, you take off your shoes carefully, you put them in the rack. You just do that in a very mindful manner. And it gets you into the mood for being here. You're crossing the threshold. You're entering, and you're doing this very mindful thing. Same reason we bow when we come into the Zendo. Same reason I'm really glad we have an arch in our backyard there, because it's kind of a symbolic entry point. Sometimes when I walk in that arch, I bow. Here I am. Time for a good reminder. And there's that story Tim has told, I'm quoting Tim a lot this morning, about Suzuki and his shoes, which I think, you know, I don't know if I'm getting it exactly right, but, and you can correct me if you want, that he had kind of an awakening experience, went to see Suzuki and wanted to talk about it, talked about it a little bit, came back the next time for Dokusan, wanted to talk about it some more. And Suzuki basically said, no, look at your shoes, because he hadn't really properly looked after his shoes. Like, forget the enlightenment, it's got to be right here, right now. If you can't do those little things, if you can't pay attention to this very moment, how are you going to welcome in those really big moments? So when we're here, it's not just our shoes, it's everything we do. Every little act that we engage in here is an opportunity to be mindful. And that especially becomes apparent on retreat after pretty easily. And then you can take it out into the world and look at those very little things. And you know, we don't toss the zafus, we respectfully place them. We don't move the zafus with our foot. We don't bang the chairs around. We just do everything with great respect because it's training, it's mindfulness. To respect everything. It makes you want to pay attention to each and every moment of your life. And maybe that's not always there, but if you act as if it's there, you'll help it to develop and thrive. So a little tighter practice, which I'm encouraging this morning, can be a great gift to yourself. But I also want to note that it can be a great gift to others, the people around you, because it creates kind of an atmosphere here. If everyone is paying attention, we really see this during retreat when we're guided by bells or the Han, everyone doing the same thing at the same time. It's a gift to other folks to be attentive. And I remember last Rohatsu, how after our meals, I would bow out of the zendo and go into the middle way room, and I remember how the servers and the soku and the tenzo would all be lined up there so kind of precisely, not rigidly, you know, not in an uptight way, just in a very sort of respectful way. Like, this really matters. This ceremonial way of sharing a meal that we have together really matters. So I walk out there and it's just, oh, this beautiful precision. And I know that beautiful precision then influences other parts of the retreat. And we do it together and it's beautiful. And sometimes the forms like that, we become a little less precise with them. When we were closed for COVID, we didn't do our yoki for I don't know how long, at least a year, and some of us kind of forgot how to do it, and lots of new people came in who'd never done it before. So it really took a while to kind of get back to this mindful way of eating, and we've come a long way, and I think that's really wonderful. So I hope this morning I've offered a little encouragement about practice, not admonishment, but this is just about all of us working together to have a practice place where we can all awaken and act compassionately in the world. And it is worth bringing a great effort to. So I'm going to stop there because I would like to see if there are any comments, anything from the audience, both online folks and folks in the room. And we can wait a minute for something to come up. Maybe that was kind of a sudden stop.
Hi, Ted.
Hi, Tanya.
So, I was reading a book recently, and it talked about least effort. And the definition of least effort was accepting the present moment and knowing that you are responsible, as in able to respond. And with your talk today, I realized my great effort comes from least effort, because when we're trying to have a dedicated time to sit down and sit, or we have plans on how we're going to practice, and things don't go quite right, we have to come back to that thought of least effort and accepting that that's what happened. And I'll just give an example. This morning, I missed sitting. We were late. We were not going to be here on time. So that intention did not happen. But by going back to least effort and accepting that that's how it is, I didn't get to sit this morning, that doesn't mean I'm not able to practice at other times through the day, and every new moment is going to bring a new opportunity for practice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I like that. I like that. Least effort and acceptance. And effort, the paramita of effort, it's very nuanced, and there are a lot of things we can say about it. And that is a very important aspect of it too. Least effort, the idea sometimes no effort is appropriate, sometimes ease and repose and acceptance, that is the Dharma gate, of perfect repose and bliss. So sort of relentless discipline all the time is only part of the story. I think I'm talking a little more about discipline this morning, that aspect of it, to keep things in balance, because I think I emphasize the gentleness a lot. So I don't know why I'm kind of in this thing where, there are times when talking about that really serious and kind of tough effort can be helpful. But thank you for kind of bringing up that whole other side of it. Yeah.
Ted?
Yes. Kent.
It reminds me some of the idea of crossing over. In my mind, I view that as crossing over to enlightenment. But then I've heard it said that the crossing over happens when you realize that you have what you need here on this side, and that you can do what it takes. You can. So that's like the discipline in your life here now, and that enables the crossing over. But the crossing over is actually here and now.
That is well said. Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Ted.
Yes. Okay, two folks.
Oh.
Jeremy.
Do you think it's useful to think of practice in terms of habits, creating healthy habits, or is that antithetical to having right effort if it's something you're doing without thinking? Does that question make sense? There's a lot of, in the self-help literature, habits is very in right now. The 7 Habits of Effective People has been on the bestseller list for a long time. Atomic Habits, there's a lot of, in the non-spiritual sense, people looking at making habits of getting things done without having effort. But is that a way of getting past not having enough effort? And I guess I'm asking because I have a lot of trouble maintaining a consistent practice. So I'm wondering if thinking about it as a habit could be helpful, or is that unhelpful? Skillful or not skillful?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it can be very helpful. I've heard that it takes 30 days to really form a habit. Maybe that's part of the literature too. But I think, you know, say you do set an intention to sit every morning for a certain amount of time, maybe it's even only 5 minutes. If you're able to do that every day, same time, same place, it might get to be something that really is a habit. You don't think about it, it's not hard to do, you just do it. I think things like that can be very helpful. Or just habitually mindful. You can choose things in your day that remind you to bring your full attention to it. Every time you go up the steps, every time you come to a stop sign, every time you do this or that. I think those things can be very helpful. And then there's probably another side of it where there's kind of, you know, letting go of habits too. But I think we're the kind of creatures who can benefit greatly from kind of training ourselves in that way. Yeah. Yes?
Another part of practice is working with a teacher. And
Mhm.
if you could talk a little bit about that and how one chooses a teacher, or does the teacher choose the student, or is that mutual?
Yeah. Working with a teacher, as you probably know, that's a very big part of Zen practice because it's an embodied practice, it's a subtle practice, it's something that is kind of demonstrated. Working with a teacher is good. I find when I meet with students over a long period of time, it may take quite a long time to bring things into focus, like what is it we're doing here, and to develop a common language. How do we talk about these very subtle things? It can take a long time, but when you get there, it's really great. So that kind of demonstrates a little bit the value of a teacher. Probably the teacher is not going to choose you because that would be maybe a little intrusive. We leave it to the student to choose the teacher. And I think it's just really important to find someone that you resonate with, that just seems like, you know, that's somebody I could work with. And we have a number of great teachers here. If you're kind of thinking, well, I would like to have a teacher, I think it's great to check the various teachers out by maybe attending their talks, you know. You can ask to set up an appointment with somebody and say, I'd just like to get to know you a little bit, and you talk for a little bit. You could even do that with several people. So sometimes people know right away, like, that's my teacher. And some go through really a longer process of choosing someone. It's an important decision. But we have a mentorship program, but signing up for a mentor doesn't mean you are agreeing that that will be your teacher for the rest of your life. You know, you can have a mentor for kind of a trial period and see how that goes. So I hope that's helpful. Yes, Leslie?
Yeah, thank you for your talk, and practice is pretty important to me, and I was thinking, I just wanted to comment on the habit thing, and I think for me, when my practice has been most consistent is when I didn't think every day or every night, am I going to get up and practice in the morning, that the decision is made, that it isn't like I'm going to meet with, should I meet with Ted this time or should I not? It's like, I know I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to get up and practice in the morning. I don't wonder at night what time I should set my alarm for, or will I, should I do it or should I not? And when I have made a decision, and it isn't like something I have to think about, am I or am I not going to do something, I tend to stay with it a lot better. If I, you know, I'm on and off a diet all the time, so if I think I'm going to eat healthy, and then I think, should I eat healthy today, or should I wait to eat healthy tomorrow, then I don't usually eat healthy. But if I know that I've made a decision, okay, I'm going to eat this way for however long I want to do it, then I don't have to wonder if I'm going to do it or not. So for me, it's not so much a habit as it's a commitment and a non-questioning commitment, something I don't wonder. And I think I stole that from Sean Acor, who wrote the book on happiness. And he said, you know, he wanted to learn to play the guitar, and he realized that every day he thinks, should I get up and practice? And instead he set it up And he just said, I'm gonna practice every day, and didn't wander the night before. And that is something that's really worked well for me, so.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think that's a really good explanation of that aspect of effort and the habit and just the regularity of it. Yeah. Kind of like in the monastery. Well, it's on the schedule. So. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll stop there then and turn this over to our Dawn for some announcements.